Kenna, Bridge of Spirits. Boy, where do I start with this? To say that I've been super excited for this game's release since June of last year is probably the understatement of the year. It was something that I looked at and just knew, yep, that's going to be a good game. And here we are on release. Has my opinion changed? Yes it has. Because it's even better than I could ever imagine. Kenna Bridge of Spirits has not only met my expectations, but exceeded them, and found itself amongst the plethora of the greatest games of all time. But I'm sure you're not here for my opinion on... Oh wait, that's exactly why you're here. Well, guess I should tell you how I arrived at such an opinion. Now there will be minor spoilers, there will be no story spoilers, but there will be some gameplay spoilers in terms of abilities, combat and environment, all of which will be in the footage you see on screen. Like always though, if you could leave a like and subscribe, it would be greatly appreciated. I really want to try and hit that 1k mark. Let's talk technical stuff first. Normally I wouldn't bother with this, but Kenna is one of those games that claims to be next gen. And you know what? Between the games that claim themselves to be next gen, I'm looking at you Returnal and Resident Evil Village, none have truly hit the mark. Maybe Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart did. Now, I'm not calling them bad games or even bad looking games, but from an optimization and technical standpoint, they simply don't even exist on the same plane as Kenna Bridge of Spirits. No pun intended. Seriously, I played Kenna Bridge of Spirits maxed out on a 2080 and didn't ever drop a single frame. The game played flawlessly on 60 FPS no matter the screen clutter, no matter the scope of the environment within view. There are some loading screens that last a total of... You know what, let me just show you. Did you catch that? I'll show you again. That's around 2 seconds, and it gets even better. The game smoothly transitions between cutscene and player control. So smooth, I'd say it's smoother than a baby's bottom. Not that I've ever touched one. But goddamn it's smooth. Not the butt, but the game. You know what I'm talking about. Now, I don't play in 4K, but from what I read, if you have a 4K monitor or screen, you can play this game maxed out in 4K on a 2080 with no frame drops at all. Okay, maybe that's a lie. On some transitions between cutscenes and player control, it does drop the frames for a couple of seconds, but nothing unbearable. While the game does have stylized graphics as opposed to hyper-realistic ones, it's still rendering in massive world spaces in a matter of seconds. This is what a true next-gen game should be like. Do I have to say anything here? Like really, I feel like Jehovah's Witness. But my god, just look at this. Kenna Bridge of Spirits, as I mentioned before, has a stylized visual that's this weird blend of Eastern and Western art styles that somehow spits out a Disney-like vibe. And I'm a huge fan. The game just looks so gorgeous no matter where you are or what you're doing. Each environment looks so beautiful, so memorable. I feel like the landscape has been burned into my brain, especially some of the meditation spots. I generally don't think I've played a better looking game, period. But it doesn't stop there because the character design is also on a level of its own. The enemies and NPCs all feel like they belong, all have unique and interesting designs. I'm in love with the tree-like designs of enemies that creates this feeling of devastation and as the corruption consumes all nature. And just the cool Disney-like vibe of all the NPCs that you encounter throughout your playthrough. Kenna Bridge of Spirits has the best visuals of any game I've played recently, and I'm willing to say ever. I'll keep this short because there is so much to talk about in this game. I simply won't have any time for the rest. But Kenna's world is what I'd consider to be a semi-open world game with a central hub. The best possible comparison I can give is probably Darksiders 2. You have a central hub where you constantly revisit throughout the story, but venture off to other regions to progress the narrative before returning back at the central hub. Like I'll mention a little later, various stories are tied to different regions in Kenna. The world itself is distinguishable, and with a game so lush with green, I was surprised just how well they managed to visually separate each region you visit from the last. All of them are unique and memorable, from lush green forests to open fields to rocky mountains towering above. The different regions you visit in Kenna are all immaculate and extremely memorable. Kenna Bridge of Spirits' combat system is similar to just about every action-adventure game that comes out these days. There's dodging, parrying, shielding, and even a handful of abilities available to Kenna. But the difference is, it's actually fun, and that's probably down to the level of polish given to the game's combat system. Just using basic attacks flows and feels really nice. You never feel like you attacked the wrong target or missed an enemy when you should have hit them. The heavy is exactly what a heavy should be. A slow, more powerful attack that, thanks to the animation, actually feels like a heavy attack. It's not just a slowed down version of your regular attack. There is weight behind Kenna's swing. Kenna's combat is sometimes a surprise in terms of difficulty spike, but given the nature of the little enemies going down in a couple of hits, some of the boss fights and mini bosses certainly catch you off guard, at least with how much more of a challenge they can be. But these boss fights and mini boss fights are never unfair. It's often made pretty obvious what you need to do to take them down, where their weak points are and how best to approach each fight. Which is good because I don't think I've ever really had any issues with any of the bosses. Sure, they were challenging and I might die 1 or 2 times before beating them. But usually you spend that time learning the boss's movesets, learning how to beat them. So I don't even see that as a loss really. I don't want to spoil too much because some of the excitement comes from not knowing what abilities and attacks Kenna can unlock throughout her journey, but both the Rot Hammer and Rot Arrow are extremely satisfying to use, entirely down to their sound design, animation, and special effects. I found myself using Rot Arrow to freeze time and line up a collateral arrow on a large group of enemies, or use the Rot Hammer to deal ridiculous damage to a boss. As crazy as it sounds, the combat actually immerses you in the world. In the combat system, everything feels sharp and responsive. Everything feels powerful and satisfying. Things like the bow and bomb that you unlock throughout the story serve this dual purpose of being an effective tool in combat as well as traversal. For example, the bow can be used to hit weak points and also help traverse the world by hitting these big glowing flowers, grappling you to them. Now, one issue, and I mean one issue with this game, is that there aren't more abilities to unlock. There are roughly 10 different abilities to unlock, which is enough to keep the game refreshing throughout your playthrough, but I'd love to see more. These abilities do a little to change up the combat, but I think most of Kenna's combat's diversity and freshness comes down to the enemies you encounter. Kenna Bridge of Spirits does a fantastic job at keeping you on your toes by introducing new enemy types, requiring you to change up your approach in combat, prioritize different enemies in a fight, and it just helps make the combat last the full length of your playthrough. Kenna Bridge of Spirits combat is nothing we haven't seen before, but it does everything better than its competitors. The combat is well polished, sharp and responsive. It feels impactful and is just plain fun. The boss fights might be a bit of a ramp up in difficulty, but it's never unfair. The enemies are well tuned and help keep the game from becoming dull and repetitive. Kenna's combat is just a really solid system, and this is the developer's first game. The story is what makes up the whole experience of Kenna. It's the soul of the game and arguably what makes it great. Kenna Bridge of Spirits doesn't do too much to revolutionize the gaming world. It's got a semi-open world with, dare I say this game in every video, a Souls-like combat system. It has stunning visuals and beautiful soundtracks. All of this doesn't make the game great on its own. I think what really does is its narrative. Now, this studio, before making this its first game, used to be an animation studio, and it really shows. So much of this game's beautiful story is ripe with personality and character. It's hard to really showcase this and even portray to you through the review the feelings and emotions this game creates in you while playing. As I mentioned earlier, the world is split up into multiple semi-open world areas with a central hub. Well, all of these areas all have their own characters, their own stories that link together throughout playing, but it's the way all these stories are told that gives life to the game's wonderful soul. No doubt thanks to the developer's animation heritage, but Kenna's characters all express themselves so well, like bowing their heads in disappointment or even skipping along in excitement. Kenna does a fantastic job at expressing these emotions and conveying them onto the player. Kenna herself is what's called a spirit guide, and your job is to be a bridge between the real world and the spirit world. Your job is to guide these lost spirits into the afterlife. It's quite a sad game, to put it bluntly, but it's not the sad kind of game that makes you cry. It's the happy kind of sad, if that makes any sense. While you see all these tragic things happening to these people, you are what helps them find their peace. You are what allows them to rest and return to the spirit realm. It feels like a sad farewell, where you know these spirits can finally rest. Kenna Bridge of Spirits just conveys emotion so well. It has so much personality and it just tells stories that are moving and touching. It just makes it so memorable, and I think that's something that has been missing in a lot of other games that have come out recently, which is why to me it makes such a huge impression. Overall, Kenna Bridge of Spirits is one of the greatest games I think I've ever played. It is worthy of the next-gen title, with amazing visuals, constant frame rates, and loading screens quicker than me, and you get the point. The visuals are mesmerizing and all the environments are just beautiful and easy on the eye. The world design is simplistic but effective. It has a level of mastery and understanding to each area. The combat is smooth and extremely well tuned to provide a challenge, yet never feel unfair or too difficult. The game's narrative is told phenomenally through emotions and brilliant story writing. Kenna Bridge of Spirits is the full package. I don't normally rate games, but this game, this is what 10 out of 10 is to me. Kenna Bridge of Spirits is one of the greatest games of all time. Thanks for watching. Like always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this down in the comment section below. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe for more content like this.